let's talk about social awareness.
Right, because it really is a very important topic. It's always been important, but now I think 2020 has just kind of been that year of
Everything.
WTF, everything and everybody, the beauty of social media is also the detriment of social media where everybody has a voice, everybody has an opinion. However, sometimes using that or expressing that, even if you are quote unquote on private settings and only your friends that you think can see, everybody really technically has access to that information.
And that's, I think, what we need to shift our mindset is we used to think that we kind of used to treat it as if we were talking amongst our friends, like at a dinner party, because
Yeah,
we restrict our friends. Most of us do. Most of us
sure.
have private settings. So we kind of put things out there as if we were talking at a dinner party.
Mhm.
And it's not like that anymore.
Right.
Even if you have every privacy setting, there are now groups and forums that exist so that people can share screenshots.
Yes.
So you may have an opinion that you are perfectly fine sharing at a dinner party with your friends. But the moment that that offends one of your friends, it is very easy to now go online and share that screenshot or send that screenshot out. And I think it's important that we open that conversation because as employers, it used to be, and as businesses, we used to think, well, you're going to have social media and you're going to have private settings, so I'm not going to say anything about that.
Hmm.
It's kind of overstepping to do that. But I think now, as we're looking, it's really important to have that conversation because everybody lists where they work, where they share. We
Right.
encourage employees to share
Sure.
things on our page, be active in your workplace.
Hmm.
It helps promote the company and promote the culture.
Right.
But when that happens, people associate you with the company.
Yes.
So people link it back to you, and I think that's what we're seeing. So though you're sharing your own personal opinion, it now reflects back where you work or people that are associated with you. So, and I'm not saying it's you shouldn't, step up and speak out. If
Right.
you have an opinion and you want to share your voice, you absolutely should do it. Now is the time to do it.
Hmm.
Just make sure you're really thinking about it and knowing, stepping back and knowing, where this could lead. You may be fine talking about it, with your closest friends, but it could be the world.
Right. Right. And, like you said, expressing yourself, you know, we talk about freedom of speech and whatnot a lot of the time too. However, that does not protect you from freedom of consequences. So, really, I would suggest as a business owner, you need to have these conversations before and not after the situation arises. And whether it's revising or implementing an employee handbook, some smaller businesses may not even go through those kinds of details, but it's better to be proactive than reactive, especially in today's environment, because whether it's whatever the issue that it is, you say the wrong thing on social media today and you could be paying the price years down the road even still, because these old tweets and old Facebook, everything resurfaces. Like Whitney said, it may be private. However, it's not too hard to dig up and find old things on social media.
And now, screenshots are
Yeah.
very easy, and most people know how to take a screenshot and share it. And I mean, you can scroll through any timeline and see somebody has shared a screenshot of something.
Yeah.
So we need to go ahead and open the conversation from businesses and employees. And we do consulting. So right now, people are coming back to work,
Hmm.
or we're hiring new people, whatever. Most
Right.
people are coming in the door right now. So it's a good time to review your handbook, but more importantly, set some social media guidelines to protect your business, but then also set the expectation for your employees. And we've been helping clients with that. We always develop that with clients when we do their social management,
Sure.
we set those guidelines so that we know your employees know exactly what your expectation is. And maybe you're in a compliance market,
Hmm.
healthcare or banking, those things, you have to communicate those things with your employees, or you're talking about fines
Right.
financially.
Yeah. Yeah. There are many ramifications. It's a ripple effect. So my advice also on the employee side of things is, you know, take those things into consideration too. Like Whitney said, don't be silent, but also be thoughtful and courteous to what you're saying, and knowing that, my opinion may be a little bit more on the extreme side of this issue. So do I really want to lump my employer in? Because there may be a whole different viewpoint or procedure that's going on with your workplace that you don't want to damage the reputation or hurt you know your fellow coworkers just because you wanted to get an opinion out there.
Right. I mean, just again, being mindful of what you're posting. You shouldn't have an expectation of privacy
Right.
online, even if you have a private
Yeah.
Facebook setting. And I think I don't think anybody says, oh, I'm going to post this and, my employer will have to deal with it. No, we don't think that.
Right. Right.
We're thinking this is my opinion, my page. I'm going to post this and I can't. We don't think beyond that. And, we say this all the time with businesses to be mindful of your posts and make it meaningful and impactful and be able to
Hmm.
stand against it.
Sure.
And just know that people might come after you. So, how am I going to back this up?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to start doing as individuals. And, just for brand reputation and your own reputation works, which kind of work together.
Right. Yeah. And that goes beyond just a Facebook post or a tweet or something on Snapchat or Instagram. Keep in mind, podcasts are growing in popularity. We talked about it at the top of the show. We are working with clients on developing and producing podcasts as well. A lot of individuals are out there trying to make a voice in a niche with podcasting or YouTube channels, and so it goes far beyond just what they're posting on a social media post. So be aware also when you're creating that content as to keep your employer and your coworkers in mind as you are going along and building your own brand if it's outside of what you're doing on your 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of the world we live in is that we have differing opinions, whether you think it's beautiful or not.
Right.
We do, and it's always good for conversation, and it's a learning experience every day. So we should be able to have differing opinions, but we need to be respectful. But we also need, especially as business owners and those that are responsible for branding, that we need to be aware
Right.
that things can happen and how easily they can happen. So just taking a step and looking at things and, look at your employee handbook again, set some social media guidelines and best practices, have the conversation.
Hmm. And that's something that, as Whitney mentioned earlier, we can do. Also, having those, again, being proactive and having a plan ready in case something were to happen where an employee posts something and it gets into it's misinterpreted, or it is just something that is brazen and gets out there. How are you as a business or brand going to react and respond to that as well? So we can work with businesses on kind of developing that reputation monitoring element that sometimes has had to come into play.
It has. And, that's a little known service that we have is kind of crisis management development.
Hmm.
And that covers your online reputation and social services. We always develop this, we call it a crisis grid, so that we set the tiers on what is a crisis,
Hmm.
who are the contacts, and then we work with the company to make sure that those things, how we address those.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, it's one of those things that sometimes, managers or business owners uh, don't want to have these conversations. They would rather just kind of deal with it when it comes up. But I think it takes a lot of it just takes a lot of off your plate, a lot of stress off of you if you have it in writing and have it established and ready to go. So then you're not reacting to a crisis at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night versus
Right.
if you've already had something set up and implemented and ready to go. So,
But then your employees know also what
right.
is expected from them.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll think a little bit
Yeah.
before, and it might help avoid these.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't, we avoid them completely, then at least we'll know how to address them. So it is something that we work with clients on. If you want help, definitely give us a call. And we can help and guide you through those, create them with you, so that you can set some expectations and then also protect your brand.
That's right. And as we mentioned earlier, if you're wanting to roll into the podcasting world, we have actually got I need to, this is breaking news for Whitney. I got an email earlier from someone inquiring more about the podcasting side of things. So if you're interested in it, it is something that we have invested some time and some effort into putting together some quality podcasts too. So I'm excited about everything the future holds, and including our new location. So 2020 on many aspects has been kind of, but Idea Creative Marketing is shining brightly, and I'm excited about what's next
really
for us.
Corny.
Sorry,
That was corny.
I had to. I had to.
We're going to discuss expectations of corny levels later.
Put that in the handbook.
But definitely follow us on social media, and you can follow our renovation projects.
Yes.
Maybe see some wild ideas from Pinterest. I did let the contractor know that Pinterest is part of my job, so he didn't think it was good.
It wasn't.
No.
Do we have a Pinterest page? We maybe need to create one now.
Well, I don't know if it would be directly relevant, but maybe.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
Yeah. It'll be exciting to watch and follow.
It is.
Hopefully.
Yes. And as long as I don't have to swing any sledgehammers or anything, we'll be good too, because that'll be a disaster.
We won't make you do your own lighting. We won't make you do any more manual work. So we're all good.
Good.
And I think that's it. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think that, like we said, it's better to have the conversation now and be ahead of it than to get behind the eight ball, so to speak, and then have to deal with the mess and the results that come after that. So
just be courteous, be mindful, be proactive, and set some expectations to protect yourself and to protect your brand and reputation. And let us know if you need help.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.